welcome to today's On This Day in Tudor History. If this is your first video, just let me introduce myself first. I'm Claire Ridgway. I've written several Tudor history books, and I also run two Tudor history websites, the Tudor Society and the Anne Boleyn Files. And one of my books is this book, On This Day in Tudor History. This is my rather battered copy. It's rather well used. And this is the inspiration for these daily On This Day in Tudor History videos. Now, today I'm taking you back to the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, who of course was the daughter of King Henry VIII and Queen Anne Boleyn, and I'm taking you back to the year 1572. For on this day in Tudor history, the 2nd of June 1572, at about 8 o'clock in the morning, the 34-year-old Thomas Howard, 4th Duke of Norfolk, was led up to the scaffold on Tower Hill, which is not far from the Tower of London, to be beheaded for high treason. He was attended by his friend and former tutor, martyrologist John Fox, who you might know from his Book of Martyrs, and also by Alexander Knoll, who was Dean of St. Paul's Cathedral. Even though he started his scaffold speech saying that he would be brief, he went on to give an incredibly long scaffold speech, ignoring those who sought to interrupt him and put a stop to his speech. He wanted his say. These were his final moments. Although Norfolk spoke of how he would not complain of any injustice, he maintained his innocence and denied being a papist, i.e. a Roman Catholic. He said, "God is my judge, before whom I stand. I thank God I was never a papist, since I knew what religion meant." So he's saying he was never ever a papist in his whole life. The sheriff finally interrupted his speech, and Norfolk stopped and embraced Sir Henry Lee, who was present at his execution in his role as Master of the Armoury, and then Norfolk said, "I have and always have had as true a heart to my prince as ever any subject hath had." And by prince there, he means the monarch. He means he's always been loyal to the monarch. He knelt, asked the Queen's forgiveness, got up again and embraced the Dean of St. Paul's before shaking the hands of others present on the scaffold and asking them to pray for him. The executioner, as was usual, then asked Norfolk's forgiveness for what he was about to do, and Norfolk gave it to him along with his payment. Norfolk knelt once again and with the Dean prayed and recited Psalm 51. After saying in Latin what translates to "Lord, into thy hands I commend my spirit," Norfolk removed his gown, his doublet and his cap. After rearranging the straw on the scaffold and refusing to wear a blindfold, just sort of saying, no, I'm not going to wear that, Norfolk put his head on the block and the executioner beheaded him with one stroke, thankfully. Norfolk's remains, his head and his body, were placed into a coffin and carried to the chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula, which is the chapel that you'll find within the Tower of London, just on Tower Green, and he was buried there by the Dean of St. Paul's. Now, let me share with you just a few facts about this Tudor Duke, including what actually led to this brutal end. He was convicted for high treason and executed for that. Well, Norfolk was born on the 10th of March 1538, and there were a lot of Thomas Howards, but this Thomas Howard was the eldest son of Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey, and his wife Frances de Vere. Norfolk's father was executed, that's Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey, was executed in January 1547 as a traitor. So Norfolk's aunt, Mary Fitzroy, Duchess of Richmond, who had been married to Henry Fitzroy, the illegitimate son of King Henry VIII, was in charge of his early upbringing. His tutors included Hadrianus Junius, the martyrologist John Fox, who was there at the scaffold with him, and Bishop John White. Now, Norfolk was made a Knight of the Bath in 1553 by Mary I when he was 15, and he helped his grandfather, Thomas Howard III, Duke of Norfolk, who was Earl Marshal and Lord High Steward, officiate at Queen Mary's coronation and her coronation banquet in October 1553. He went on to serve Mary's husband, Philip of Spain, as First Gentleman of the Bedchamber. So in Mary I's reign, he was climbing in favour. He became Duke of Norfolk and Earl Marshal after the death of his grandfather in 1554. He married Mary Fitzalan, daughter and heir of Henry Fitzalan, 12th Earl of Arundel, in 1555. But unfortunately, Mary died 2 months after giving birth to their son Philip in 1557. He then married his cousin Margaret Dudley, who was widow of Lord Henry Dudley and heir of Thomas Lord Audley of Walden, in 1558. She died on the 10th of January 1564, a few weeks after giving birth to their 5th child. So I can't quite compute that, but 1558 they married. 1564 she was giving birth to their 5th child. That's quite incredible, and unfortunately she died. He went on to marry again. He married Elizabeth Leybourne, who was widow of Thomas Lord Dacre of Gilsland, in 1567. However, she died later that year, and her children from her previous marriage, Norfolk's stepchildren, were made Norfolk's wards, so he was in charge of them and any lands that they owned, etc. As Earl Marshal of England, Thomas presided over Mary I's funeral in 1558 and also over Elizabeth I's coronation in January 1559. So he was in high favour then. He was a very, very important man. He was elected as a Knight of the Garter in 1559 and was installed also as a Knight of St. Michael, the French version of the Order of the Garter, really, a French chivalric order, in 1566. In 1561, December 1561, he was admitted to Gray's Inn, a legal sort of corporation, and he received an MA from the University of Cambridge in 1564 and then Oxford in 1568. Now, Norfolk had several fallings out with Robert Dudley, Earl of Leicester, who was, of course, Elizabeth I's great friend and favourite. They fell out over potential marriage matches for the Queen and also over the plans for the succession. So fallings out with the Queen's favourite, not a great idea, I suppose. In 1564, Norfolk's name was put forward by Queen Elizabeth I as a potential husband for Mary, Queen of Scots, along with, these were the other suitors put forward, Robert Dudley and Lord Darnley. And of course, Lord Darnley did end up marrying Mary, Queen of Scots. The idea of a marriage match between Norfolk and Mary, Queen of Scots, was resurrected by Scots politician William Maitland of Lavington in 1568, and Norfolk was keen on the idea of marrying the Queen of Scots. However, he wasn't very sensible. He didn't inform Elizabeth I of this idea being resurrected and him liking the idea and discussing it with the Scots politician. And when Robert Dudley told Elizabeth I, she immediately jumped to the conclusion that Norfolk was plotting. In October 1569, he was arrested and taken to the Tower of London. Now, although he denied involvement in the subsequent 1569 Rising of the North, which sought to depose Elizabeth and replace her with Mary, Queen of Scots, he was actually by this time secretly corresponding with Mary. Not at all sensible. In 1570, he was released into house arrest, but then was arrested again in September 1571 when the Ridolfi Plot against Elizabeth I came to light, and his servants implicated him in the plot. In December 1571, Norfolk was charged with having conspired and imagined to deprive the Queen of her crown and dignity, and compassed to excite sedition, to cause great slaughter amongst the Queen's lieges, to levy war and rebellion against the Queen, to subvert the government, to change and alter the pure religion established in the kingdom, and to bring in strangers and aliens to invade the realm, and to carry on a bitter war against the Queen. He was found guilty of high treason in January 1572, but Queen Elizabeth was reluctant to execute the highest peer in England. And of course he was a Howard, so Elizabeth was related to him through her grandmother, the mother of Anne Boleyn, who was Elizabeth Howard. So he was a relative, and he was the highest peer in England, and someone, who had served her in the past and served the monarchs of England loyally. But after pressure from Parliament to deal with him, the Queen finally had him executed on this day in 1572. So there you go, that's some information about Thomas Howard, 4th Duke of Norfolk, who was executed on this day in 1572, and perhaps didn't act in the most sensible of ways, but still nobody deserves to die such a brutal death, do they? Anyway, I'll be back tomorrow with another On This Day in Tudor History event for you. If you've enjoyed this video, then please give it a like. You can subscribe to this channel by clicking around about there and hit the bell to be notified of future videos as they go live. But be assured that I will be back again tomorrow with another video, and I'll be doing this for the whole of 2019. And who knows, perhaps I'll go on beyond then. Take care, have a great day. Bye bye.